Greetings, friends. Welcome to today's devotional, Psalm 95. It is the first in a series of psalms. I don't know, the next 5 or 6 or so psalms are all psalms or hymns of praise. So that's a different kind of theme for us to consider for the next several days, our praise and worship of God. The psalm begins, "O come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come into his presence with thanksgiving. Let us make a joyful noise to him with songs of praise. For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods. In his hand are the depths of the earth. The heights of the mountains are his also. The sea is his, for he made it, and the dry land which his hands have formed. O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. Oh, that today you would listen to his voice. Do not harden your hearts as at Meribah, as on the day of Massah in the wilderness, when your ancestors tested me and put me to the proof, though they had seen my work. For 40 years I loathed that generation and said, they are a people whose hearts go astray, and they do not regard my ways. Therefore, in my anger, I swore they shall not enter my rest." So this is probably some kind of a festival psalm as leading into the sanctuary and leading into a time of worship, and then also a time of confession or admonition from God to the people. And you'll notice that in the first 7 verses, the qualities and characteristics of God that make him worthy of our praise. Specifically and most noticeably is that the creation, or the Creator God, is worthy of our praise and our worship. It's important to note that we don't praise and worship God because of the things that he does for us or because we are blessed by him. God's worthy of praise and worship just simply for who he is. And in recounting the creation and the creative act of God, certainly his power and might and authority over creation is very, very noticeable. And if you just look around, open your eyes and see creation, see the creation around us and consider what God has created, the diversity of creation from microscopic organisms to the complexity of humankind. And you look at the plant life, beautiful flowers, majestic trees. Think about animal life as well, and the diversity of animal life, and the creatures that swim in the ocean and the birds that fly through the air. And then just think of creation itself and looking out in the stars at night and the planets that we see or can see through a telescope or whatever, and recognizing that God created all of that out of his own power and authority. And it's amazing, not just the diversity and the intricacy of God's creation, but how it is all interwoven and intertwined. That the position of the moon and the sun impact not just the weather, not just the heat or cold, but the tides in our seas and the ecosystems around us, that the bugs play a part and the predators play a part and we play a part in it, and how any changes that we made have an impact on the entirety of creation. And thinking about that, if you ever spend any time thinking about that, then certainly one would recognize how worthy God is to be praised and to be worshiped. Again, not for the things that he does for us, but just because of who God is. And then to read verse 7, that he is our God and we are the people of his pasture, the sheep of his hand. And that shepherd reference that's so common in scriptures in both the Old and the New Testament. Obviously, Jesus being known as the Good Shepherd. And what that brings to mind is the great care and concern that God has for us. As powerful and as mighty as he is, he cares for us as a shepherd would care for their sheep, tending to them, providing for their needs, offering them correction and discipline when they've gone astray, being willing certainly to lay his life down for the life of his sheep. And that reference is made, of course, by Jesus in the Gospel of John. And that is another amazing characteristic trait of God. And that last, what was I going to say? The next verse in verse 8, "Oh, today that you would listen to his voice. and do not harden your hearts. And what does God say to us? What does God say to us through the beauty of his creation, through the care and tenderness that he provides for us, for the salvation that he brought us, through the sacrifice that he made of his own, on his own, and that done completely out of his grace, or from a point of grace for us. And what is the voice of God saying to us in that? And what is the voice of God saying to us just in general? That we are his beloved, that we are cared for, that we are the pinnacle of his creation, that there is no other that he loves more than we, or us, or humankind, or you individually and specifically, because it is also very, very personal for us. And God sees the best in you and created you just as he wanted you to be created, and God doesn't make mistakes. And so you are the perfect creation of God, and though it may not always feel like that, that is the truth of the thing, of the voice that we can and should hear from God, not the voice we hear in our own head, or the voices that we hear from others. The all-powerful, almighty God of creation is the same one who gave his life for us, and we are loved beyond compare and understanding. It certainly makes him worthy of our praise and our worship. That's our devotion for today. Tomorrow we have Psalm 96, and until then, know that you are beloved.